Hello everybody, and thank you for coming to watch this video. I've had a lot of people lately asking me about my drum tuning and specifically what I'm doing to create that sound that I'm getting. So I decided to create this video to kind of answer some of those questions. If you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for future musical endeavor videos. What I'm going to discuss is the tuning for my toms, and I'll discuss my snare drum. Anyway, so the sound in question is the fat sound that I am obtaining. Alright, so before I would use a drum dial. To be specific, this drum dial, actually, the drum dial, you know, I would do exactly as it says in the box, you know, with the little rim thing. And I'd go around to each, make it its mark. I think I was using 75 on top and 74 on the bottom, something like that. What those numbers yielded were the actual sound of the shell itself. So I was getting a lot of shell tone in my playing, mostly shell tone. And then, you know, of course, the head resonance itself. It's a pretty high pitch compared to what I'm doing now. So I started thinking about my drum tuning a little more pitch-wise and more of a feeling than a number. For me, yielded better results. I'm getting a really fat, deep, throaty sound out of my drums now, which is good for the kind of music I've been playing lately, which is just, you know, oldies rock. Now, my top tom, I interchange between an 8 and a 10 inch, and they're tuned a little differently. I'll show you what I'm doing on those. So first, let me just play. I'm going to start here with my floor tom, and let me just play a little bit of it, and you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. So you hear that deep, throaty attack, and then that enormous sustain and pitch bend downward, almost like a boo. That comes from tuning the heads slightly apart from each other and not the same. So let me just get into what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is I detune the entire drum all the way. Let me just give a POV here. I'm going to show you on one lug, actually. Take it all the way out. Then I detune it all the way like that. I use my left hand, thumb and index finger, and I tighten it as tight as I can get it with my left hand, thumb and index finger. And then I take the drum key, let me show you from up here, and I turn it a quarter of a turn. A full turn would mean this end goes all the way around and comes back to here. A half turn would mean this end would go to here. Quarter turn is in between that. Gonna be about right there. I do that to all the lugs. I do that the same on the bottom. And then what I do is I slightly, the top head gets about another pinch. About that much on each lug. Just a hair more. Probably not even that much. Then the bottom head. That's the sound that yields that enormous pitch bend, is that slightly tighter top head than the bottom head. And that's what creates that drop that you're hearing. And I love it. Now let me go on and show you my two rack toms, kind of what I do with them. And I'll show you my snare drum. It's a little bit different. Mostly for playability is why it's different. So let's go ahead and go on to those. Alright, so here's my rack toms, snare drums on the bottom, all on a snare drum stand here. Let me first talk about the main kind of central rack tom that I use here is a 12-inch. It's a fairly shallow 12-inch, actually. I believe it's 8 inches deep. But basically, what's happening here is the same sort of concept. There's a little less pitch bend on this one, mostly because it's a rack tom. It's not as deep as a floor tom, and I like that super deepness only on the floor tom, just at least for the music I'm playing currently in the band that I'm working with. And see, there's still a lot of sustain, and if you'll notice, I'm using a tone ring taped here with a couple pieces of electrical tape, but the tuning is exactly the same. I loosen all the lugs, tighten them with my index and thumb on my left hand, quarter turn on each lug, top head gets a hair more on each lug. And kind of the reason I first came up with giving the top head a hair more on each lug was to increase a little more playability, because it was a really floppy head, so I give it a little more tension. It was a little easier to play. But it created that awesome pitch bend that I love. I mean, it's fun. That's my 12-inch rack tom. Now, kind of what I'm going to be calling the alternative tom. I interchange it between an 8-inch and a 10-inch. For a long time there, I was using the 8-inch, and then I picked the 10-inch up out of the pile. Decided to give it a try, and I'm going to play it here, and you're going to notice it's a little bit different tuning. You notice the resonance is different. It's a little bit of a shaky resonance instead of a pitch bend, and it's tuned a little higher than the method I was describing. Everything is probably tuned maybe a little more than a quarter of a turn higher, and then the top head is then like a pinch, like tapped a little bit higher. And it creates that kind of a shaky resonance. I play a lot of rim on this drum. This also drum kind of ties in. It helps the drum sound like I can go around the kit instead of just, low playing, which I do a lot of low playing with them, but this kind of gives me a little, you know what I'm saying? Gives a wider tonal range. That's basically all this is used for. I play it a lot less than the other drums, and this head is actually not a head I would prefer to have on here, but because of its purpose, right now it doesn't matter. It's the Remo Weather King Emperor is what's on this guy right now. Preferably, I would have a pinstripe on here, because I use pinstripes for everything. But it doesn't get played a lot, so I had a head laying around, and I used this one. And the next thing is my snare drum. I've had this snare drum forever. Love it. I use Remo Ambassador coated heads on these guys. This head, as you might be able to see, hasn't been replaced in quite a while. The coating is actually missing in the playing spot. I used to have a tone ring on this guy. Took it off, didn't need it. It's got an adjustable dampening pad on the inside, so I use that, and it's pressing on the top head just a little bit. Tuning on this is much different. Let me first go through the way I tune the bottom head, because that's a very important step. If you're trying to tune the bottom head, you got the snares down there. These are the snares off. So, trying to tune the bottom head, got snares down there. Trick, get a pen or a pencil of any kind. Loosen the tension by hand. Put your hand under the snares. Take this pin and push it to the end. And then, you can push it a little further. Your snares are no longer touching the bottom head, and you can tune freely. Just getting the pitch of the bottom head. Now, the bottom head is significantly looser than the top head. I'll tell you that right now. What I'm doing is I tighten them all down with my index and thumb on my left hand. Then I take the drum key and I give each lug a half turn. That's the starting point for the bottom head. It's probably going to come up from there. May not have to if you like that. It's going to be super deep. Also depends on the depth of your snare drum. Snare drum's not very deep. Now, at this point, the top head and the bottom head are different pitches entirely. Mostly because I crank the top head down. I mean, I smash it down. I smash the top head. Tight. Very tight top head. As you can see, you can't do that on a floor tom. That's a tight head. Mostly because I play a lot of rolls, and I like a really responsive snare drum to the touch. See right there, I just loosened the little dampener pad off. So now I have this huge resonance. This is perfect for the reggae. Right? Right? You know what I'm saying? If you put the snares on. Right? You get all these cool tones happening. Put it back on. That resonance goes away, but you have a fat, deep snare drum now. And that's some people don't think that's fat, but it's fat enough for me. Compared to what I was using before, I was using, my snare drum almost sounded like a marching drum. Right? That's super fat. It works for me. What's going on here is the top head's cranked down, half turns on the bottom lugs, plus a little bit more probably because half turns are pretty fat. Right? Pretty cool sounding snare drum. Right? And then you have to adjust your snares accordingly, because if you have them too loose, it sounds junky. If you have them cranked all the way down, sounds okay when you play hard, but when you play soft, you don't have really good snare response. I have them somewhere in the middle. Somewhere about there. And that also helps with the fatness of it, you know, how tight your snares are. Probably use it a little more. Yeah, see, right there. That's perfect. I hope this video helps you all out a little bit and answers some questions about my tuning. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you.